We have ignition. And we have liftoff of an ILS Proton from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan.
The space race was an unexpected product of the Cold War. The Cold War was an era of geopolitical tension between the Eastern and Western blocs. The Eastern Bloc consisted of the Soviet Union, North Korea, China, Vietnam, and other socialist states in Central and Eastern Europe. The Western Bloc comprised of the United States and the countries included in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO, against the spread of communism. The Cold War is most notable for the political nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union. During World War II, Russia and the United States worked together as allies against the Nazi regime. Over the course of World War II, Nazi Germany launched a series of V-2 rockets against the then Allied nations. At the end of World War II, Nazi Germany was defeated and the Soviet Union and United States emerged as opposing superpowers. This post-World War II period became known as the Cold War. After the war, the Soviet Union, as well as the United States, began developing their own intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICB, based on Nazi Germany's V-2 rockets. The V-2 rocket, nicknamed Retribution Weapon 2, was the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. The V-2 was created as a vengeance weapon to retaliate against the World War II Allied nations for the sustained aerial bombings of German railways, ports, and industrial districts. The V-2 rocket was the first man-made object to cross the Kármán line, the boundary between Earth's atmosphere and outer space. The collapse of Nazi Germany became a free-for-all, as teams from the Allied nations, the United States, and the Soviet Union raced to obtain key V-2 technology. The United States acquired enough hardware to build approximately 80 V-2 missiles. However, the Soviet Union acquired possession of the V-2 manufacturing facilities as well as access to Wernher von Braun, the German scientist who developed the V-2 rocket technology. Sergei Korolev was the genius behind the Soviet Union's space program's success. Korolev was the lead Soviet rocket engineer and spacecraft designer. Under Korolev's leadership, the Soviet space program experienced the success of the launch of Sputnik 1 on October 4, 1957. Sputnik 1 became the first artificial satellite to orbit Earth, officially beginning the space race, thus placing Russia in the national spotlight. Sputnik 2 was the first to carry Likia, the Soviet dog, into space on November 3, 1957. Vostok 1, the first human spaceflight, Yuri Gagarin circled the Earth in a low orbit, becoming the first human in space on April 12, 1961. And Vostok 6, which carried the first woman, Valentina Tereshkova, into space on June 6, 1963. The success of space missions, in addition to beating the Americans in aeronautical advancements, served as prime propaganda material. However, the Soviet victories were short-lived and halted with the death of Sergei Korolev. Korolev died on January 14, 1966 during surgery. His official cause of death was ruled as complications from abdominal cancer. During Korolev's tenure with the Soviet space program, he was officially known as the chief designer. Korolev's true identity was hidden to protect him from the possible Cold War assassination attempts by the United States. His identity was revealed following his death. His obituary was published in the newspaper, and his ashes were interred into the Kremlin wall with state honors. Lastly, Mishin, an engineer, was named Korolev's successor and bestowed with the title of chief designer. Mishin worked closely with Korolev, serving as the second in command. However, Mishin did not achieve the progress nor the success of his predecessor. Mishin inherited the unfinished and flawed N-1 rocket program in 1966. The N-1 was launched 4 times. Each attempt ended in failure. First on February 21, 1969, second on July 3, 1969, third on June 26, 1971, and finally on November 23, 1972. The second failed launch resulted in the largest non-nuclear explosion in history. The explosion destroyed both the rocket as well as the entire compound, setting the program back by more than 2 years. Following the second failed N-1 launch, the United States Apollo 11 mission became the first spaceflight to successfully transport and land two people, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Following the American moon landing, the Kremlin consolidated the entire Soviet space program into one organization, fired mission, and in 1972 replaced him with Valentin Gushchenko. Gushchenko also worked as an engineer under Korolev. However, once Gushchenko reached the position of chief designer, the death of the Soviet space program was imminent. The Americans reached the moon first, thus winning the space race. Following the death of Korolev, the Soviet space program experienced an excessive series of expensive and devastating failures. These failures were exacerbated by the success of the United States space program. Although the Soviet Union was the first to make major milestones in aeronautical science and space travel, the United States was declared the winner because they were the first nation to land a man on the moon. In July 1975, the Apollo-Soyuz test project, or Soyuz-Apollo, was the first joint Soviet Union-United States spaceflight. The mission was proposed as an attempt to ease the tensions between the two nations. The Soyuz-Apollo mission was a joint effort to obtain images of the solar corona. The American Apollo acted as an ellipse of the sun, and the Soviet Soyuz took photographs. Following the completion of Soyuz-Apollo, the Soviet space program was officially canceled in 1976. The Soviet space program was ultimately derailed by the unexpected death of Korolev. Although the Soviet space program had all the potential and resources to be the first to the moon, a series of unfortunate events forever changed the tide of history.